Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of this F1 25 Joshua Pearce career mode. This is part 21 of this series. If you did miss the last episode, Max Verstappen claimed victory in Mexico for the Mexican Grand Prix, but it wasn't looking like he was going to get the win at all. Pretty much all race, our teammates had been running in the lead and we had a bulletproof defense against the McLarens and against Max Verstappen to keep an Apex GP 1-2 looking set in stone. Unfortunately, in the dying stages of the race, we suffered a control electronics failure which ended our race, and in the end, Max Verstappen was able to close the gap and pass our teammate for victory. Sonny Hayes would come home for a third position, but ultimately an overall disappointing weekend to only get a third position for the team. And heading into the race weekend, Max Verstappen extends his championship lead to 59 points ahead of Lando Norris. Then it's myself sitting in third, 78 points behind Lando, and our teammate is in ninth, 56 points behind George Russell. And Red Bull lead the Constructors' Championship by 53 points to McLaren. Ferrari are in third, 82 points further back. And Apex GP, we find ourselves sitting in fourth, another 95 points further back from Ferrari. And we're going to start adapting some more parts for the durability, since Sonny, he's already looking into the adaptation of parts in the aerodynamics. So we're jumping into the durability to try and get some of these parts adapted for next season. And we've got our first rumours as we close out this opening season of the series, and it all kicks off at Racing Bulls with them struggling in their performances, and it checks out. Most of the season they have been on paper the slowest team, which I'm sure Red Bull won't like, since they have one team currently leading both championships and the other one is struggling to even get a point every other race and is currently last in the constructors standings. Currently they have Hadjar and Lawson driving for them, so they'll have to go into the new season with new drivers, or will they have the same drivers now that both Lawson and Hadjar would have had a full season under their belt and focus on learning the all-new Ford Performance Power Unit for 2026. We've got another big weekend ahead of us with more parts on the car. I would just like to remind people, though, that at least on my side of the garage, I've stopped putting resource points into the new parts. All it's going into adapting the new parts to be on the car for the new regulation change next season. And all these parts that are being installed to the car are all stuff that had been purchased before the regulation change, and anything that Sonny is currently purchasing on his side of the garage. And we've got mixed weather for the weekend, with the sprint race looking wet at the start and for it to dry out towards the end, a dry qualifying session and hopefully a dry Grand Prix as well, with a small throw of rain. As we've seen so far this season, we haven't quite worked out a wet weather setup, or really how to get the best car performance out of a wet session. And speaking of performance, with these parts seen earlier, another big step in car performance. Red Bull now past McLaren as well, with that team bringing large upgrades, and Mercedes and Ferrari staying on near identical performance further down the grid. It's been good gains from Haas, with Sauber currently the slowest team on paper.
It's a Saturday showdown. Anyone fancy some hot laps around Interlagos? It's qualifying day here for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix.
Sprint qualifying time, and it is going to be all to play for here. We've got the fastest car on paper, and it's going to be interesting to see if we can actually transfer this pace into something on the timing screens, and hopefully our teammate can be up there with us as well. We're going to close out the first lap as we take it to the grass. We caught a little bit of that grass on the exit there of the final corner. We spun around, gone through a couple of the signs there, and we're going to have to go around for another lap. So I was hoping to get through on only the one lap on these mediums, but in the end we'll bring it home into a 6th position on the mediums, and our teammate goes fastest here in SQ1 by 3/10 to Kimi Antonelli. That's Piastri in third, only 3 thousandths behind Kimi. Myself, in the end, we do maintain that 6th position, 4/10 behind, and knocked out in SQ1 is Stroll by 2/10 of a second. Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, Liam Lawson, Nico Hulkenberg, and Jack Doohan makes it both the Alpines out here in the first part of sprint qualifying, as we now go straight into the end of our flying lap here on a set of mediums, again in SQ2. And we go third fastest. It was a purple first sector, and now we're going to go for another lap here just to solidify our spot, hopefully into SQ3 here, and we jump up to third position, but it's going to be Max Verstappen who's fastest in this second part of qualifying by 3/10 to Lando, then myself in third, 4/10 behind. Hayes is in 6th position, 8/10 behind. and knocked down SQ2's Kimi Antonelli, who was P2 in the first part, is out along with Oliver Behrman, Gabriel Bortoletto, Isaac Hadjar, Fernando Alonso, and Alex Albon not making it to the shootout for the sprint. And we've gotten purple in the first sector, and we've lost it at turn 4. We do gather it up a little bit there, but that is a lot of time lost, and this is our only flying lap on the soft compound tyres, because we left it all the way to the end of the session, and it's going to be 4th position. So is that going to be a costly mistake? And by the timings, I reckon it is, because Hayes is on sprint pole position and on the front row with Charles Leclerc. Norris is in 3rd, and for myself, I do reckon that it could have been a front row lockout if it wasn't for my mistake at turn 4, but a second row is still a pretty good starting position, and championship leader Max Verstappen is in 5th, only 200ths behind myself.
It's wet here today, and we're expecting those downpours to continue. This will make for a difficult sprint for all the teams. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. Sonny Hayes lines up on pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Norris, Pearce, Max Verstappen, and Tsunoda, Russell, Hamilton, Piastri, and Carlos Sainz, Antonelli, Behrman, Gabriel Bortoletto, and Hadjar, Fernando Alonso, Albon, Lance Stroll, and Pierre Gasly, Ocon, Lawson, Hulkenberg, and Jack Doohan rounds off the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out.
Radio check, please. Radio check. Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
Alrighty, and the strategy for today's sprint race, with it being a bit damp there out on circuit, still a little bit of rain falling, it's going to be intermediates to the end of the Grand Prix. It is meant to be drying out towards the end, but I reckon it's still going to be inters all the way to the checkered flag. 12 laps ahead of us here for the sprint race here in Sao Paulo, and it's 5 red lights, and we're off, and it's a pretty good start for ourselves. Very minimal wheel spin. It's very, very quickly to Lando Norris. He goes defensive, so we go to his outside, but we hit the grass, and that is us now out sideways. We're losing a heap of positions. We've made contact with George Russell. We're still continuing to make contact with Russell there in the Mercedes. Tsunoda sneaks on through to take 5th position away. We get a warning, and now trying to give Piastri space. We skateboard on the exit of turn 3 across the curb, and it's been an absolute shocker start for ourselves as we hit more grass in the braking zone, and we lose yet another position to not only Hamilton, but also Carlos Sainz in the Williams, and that is us from 4th position to outside of the points here in the sprint race before we even make it to turn 5. It's been a horrid start for ourselves as we close out the opening lap of the Grand Prix. Hamilton, he is making moves in the Ferrari as he looks to battle his teammate George Russell. These guys used to be teammates only last season, both driving the Mercedes, and he'll take that 7th position away from George Russell. But Russell now has Carlos Sainz breathing down the back of his neck, trying to get himself into that P8 position, and if he gets that 8th position, he will claim one crucial point in this World Championship, since the top 8 only is the scorers for this sprint race. Tsunoda and Piastri, they continue to battle it out. It's Piastri who goes around the outside as they climb the hill, and he'll take that 5th position away. Our teammate, though, he did lose the lead of the sprint race, and it looks like on lap 5 here, going into turn 4, he is going to be trying to take that position away down the inside of Charles Leclerc. He's going to squeeze him on the exit, and he'll take the lead back here in today's sprint, and that has allowed Lando Norris to now close up to the back of Charles Leclerc. DRS flap now wide open. The track is deemed dry enough by the FIA for the DRS to become activated, and that is going to aid Lando Norris as he goes down the inside of Charles Leclerc. Leclerc this time, though, he has learned from his battle with our teammate that he's going to keep his nose in it, and is he going to be able to keep the position? No, he can't, but he's now got Max Verstappen all over the back of him, so it looks like the Ferrari is fading. We've got a yellow flag behind us, and I'm just distracted by it, and once again, tapping the grass in the braking zone, and that causes the rear end to step out. That is the 3rd time I've done that this sprint race, and it is for Oliver Behrman, who suffers some sort of mechanical issue, and he's going to pull off to the side of the track, and that is his day done for Haas in today's sprint race. Max Verstappen, he is now looking to take that podium away from Charles Leclerc. He'll have to go around the outside. Leclerc also had the DRS from Lando Norris, which kind of aided his defense a little bit, but it looks like that Red Bull's going to be too far superior for the Ferrari, and Max Verstappen now goes up into the sprint podium ahead of Leclerc. Piastri and Tsunoda continue to battle it out, but here is Lewis Hamilton. He's gaining. Can he go around the outside of the McLaren? No, he can't. He slots in into 7th position there, behind Oscar Piastri. Leclerc, though, he tries to fight it back against Max Verstappen. He can't do it, though. He'll have to sit in 4th position. Tsunoda, he's now trying to get himself ahead of Leclerc, and he's going to do it super easily before they even make it to the braking zone, and that is going to be him now up into 4th position as Leclerc is falling down the order, and next up behind him, it looks like to be his teammate of all people to try and get a position away from him. Back on board with ourselves, we're going down the inside of Carlos Sainz if we want to try and get ourselves at that point away from George Russell. It's lap 11, so we have to get by Carlos Sainz this lap, but he's not going to let me go. I think he knows exactly what I'm trying to do, but he wants to try and get that point away from George Russell on the final lap, but in the end, we muscle our way through into 9th position as our teammate crosses the line to take a victory here in Sao Paulo for the sprint race. Norris will claim a podium alongside Max Verstappen, but unfortunately for ourselves, we have not been able to get ourselves that P8. We tried very, very hard, and in the end, it was too little, too late, but I guess I got to be somewhat okay with the fact that we did climb back through the field after that just absolutely shocking start, terrible start. We made the one mistake, and then that was it for the rest of the opening lap. The rest of the top 8, Yuki Tsunoda, Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Lewis Hamilton, and George Russell, as we now try and forget all of this happening, and we try and refocus for the Grand Prix qualifying up next.
It's a Saturday showdown. Anyone fancy some hot laps around Interlagos? It's qualifying day here for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix.
Alrighty, it was a 4th position in the sprint qualifying with a mistake at turn 4, so hopefully, I reckon we were predicted that we could have got ourselves a front row lockout for Apex GP, so let's see if we try and can't get that one done here today on the soft compound tyres here in Q1. It's 2 purple sectors, and we go fastest with a 7.1, and that's going to be our only flying lap of the session. And we are fastest by 10th to Charles Leclerc, then it's Hayes in 3rd, and knocked out in qualifying 1, Stroll by 10th, Doohan, Ocon, Lawson, Behrman to make it both Hasses out, and Nico Hulkenberg also not making it to this next part of qualifying, as we actually complete another lap on the same set of tyres that we used in Q1, another 2 purple sectors, and it is going to be nearly an identical lap time, another 7.1 here in Q2, and we go fastest once again by a 10th, this time to Max Verstappen. Norris is in 3rd, 2 tenths behind. Hayes is in 8th, and knocked out in qualifying 2s. Isaac Hadjar, Pierre Gasly, Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, a track that he absolutely adores. He's all the way down in P14. George Russell and Gabriel Bortoleto not making it to the shootout. And we're going to complete our first flying lap here. It's a purple first, green second, and another green. And that is going to put us into provisional pole position. But as we now go to our next flying lap here, our final flying lap, you can see Hayes has taken that P1 away from us, and we have a big snap at the top of the hill, and that causes us to go very, very deep into the following corner, and that is going to be our last lap done and dusted, and it's going to be our first ever front row lockout for Apex GP, with Hayes getting pole position by 400ths ahead of myself. Very close margins, because the top 4 in qualifying is separated by only 800ths of a second, with the second row consisting of Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. Norris is all the way down in 8th position, and he's making his championship fight that more difficult in these closing stages of the season, starting back there.
Welcome along then to where heroes and history are made. It's where the 2008 title was decided in the very final corner. And just 1 year later, Jenson Button stormed through from 14th on the grid to claim his one and only Drivers' Championship. It's time then for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. We're racing today then at Interlagos, a historic 2.7-mile circuit and one of the few anti-clockwise tracks on the calendar. 15 corners in total, 9 to the left and 6 to the right, with a technical middle section opening up to a flat-out Sector 3. That gives us our best passing opportunity down into Turn 1. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Sonny Hayes lines up on pole position, and Joshua Pearce completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Piastri, Leclerc, Alex Albon and Norris, Sainz, Hadjar, Gasly and Fernando Alonso, Hamilton, Verstappen, George Russell and Bortoletto, Tsunoda, Stroll, Jack Doohan and Esteban Ocon, Lawson, Antonelli, Hulkenberg and Ollie Behrman rounds off the grid. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? And striding into our commentary box to join us today, the man, the myth, the legend, Anthony Davidson. Interlagos, always one of my favourite weekends of the season. Love Brazil, adore this track.
Absolutely spot on, Crofty. I wish you could pick this circuit up and place it, copy-paste it on multiple different locations around the planet, because it is sensational to watch, sensational to drive. And for all these drivers here in Brazil, it's a great time to get stuck into this Interlagos circuit. It's an anti-clockwise track, lots of important corners to get right, and it's a track where you can make or lose an awful lot of lap time.
All right, let's have a quick radio check, please. Radio check. Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
How good is that? A 1-2 in qualifying, an Apex GP front row lockout for the very first time. Taking a look at the strategy, seeing the tyre wear. The two-stopper is tempting, but also the fact that I don't want to do anything rash starting at the front. So I'm going to stick with the one-stopper, and also the one-stopper is nearly 20 seconds faster than the two-stopper as we now get ready for the Grand Prix here in Sao Paulo. It's 5 red lights, and we are away! And it's a pretty good start for ourselves. Hayes has to go defensive against ourselves. We get wheel spin in the second part of the start, and in the end we go a little bit wide into turn 1 because I didn't want to chop the nose off of Oscar Piastri and possibly get some early damage here in today's Grand Prix, so I left in the space, but that's allowed our teammate to start running away with it. He's already got half a second over ourselves. Behind is Piastri, Leclerc, Albon, Lando Norris. He's made it up to P6 already, so he's made up a few positions. Then it's Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Max Verstappen. He's battling away with Isaac Hadjar. So there is 2 Red Bulls inside the top 10, but one of them happens to be a Racing Bull. The slowest car on the grid is up inside of the top 10. So it's a brilliant, brilliant start from Isaac Hadjar to get himself that far up. As we go onto lap 2 now, Charles Leclerc, he's trying to get the podium position away from Oscar Piastri. The Ferrari goes around the outside at turn 3. Piastri, though, he's going to get the aid of the DRS going down the straight, but that Ferrari has got such good straight line speed, he nearly stayed alongside Piastri. I thought he really had the alongside done and dusted. The train hanger around the outside at turn 4 as the battle behind is starting to look pretty good. Lando Norris, he's trying to make his way through the field here to try and keep his championship alive, but he's got some Williams and a Aston Martin to deal with, and Max Verstappen, he's also closing in on that battle. In fact, he's actually there with that battle now. He's only 3/10 behind. And so Norris, he has to get through these Williams as quickly as possible, and he does so. He's now up into 5th position, and now he has to chase down his teammate. So is McLaren going to finally put in some team orders here as Fernando Alonso uses the DRS to get himself ahead of Carlos Sainz? Max Verstappen, he's using this very opportunistic move as well to go around the outside. Is he going to be able to steal the position away? He can, and that gets himself now up into 8th position. So Max Verstappen also on a recovery drive. He got dropped down the field just a little bit after having to take a small engine component change, and he's now working his way through the field quite nicely, much faster than what Lando Norris was able to do, because Max Verstappen now finds himself ahead of Alex Albon. That puts him now up into 7th position, and he can chase down Fernando Alonso, which is what he's going to do exactly right now. Using the DRS, he'll go around the outside at turn 1, late braking. He'll give him the inside for turn 2, the second part of the center S here, and it will give him the outside here, but he should be able to keep DRS. Is he going to be able to keep the DRS? No, Fernando Alonso, he'll actually take that DRS away from Max Verstappen. He'll be able to defend his position. So Verstappen, he's now been stuck behind the 2-time world champion Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, holding on to that 6th position just for now. But Lando Norris, he's now gained to the back of Oscar Piastri. He goes down the inside, but it looks like Oscar's not going to let this one go very, very easily at all. But Lando, he'll be able to power through on his teammate. And his teammate, though, using the battery, he's going to be able to get back to the inside of Lando. So this is definitely not what Lando probably needs for his world championship. He is a little bit further down than Max Verstappen, but he's still mathematically in this championship, and so he needs to try and claim every point against Max Verstappen that he can until it is not possible for him to win this World Championship. We get our first objective of the Grand Prix, and it's to overtake our teammates. So far, we've just kind of been pushing each other to the limit on these mediums. We've absolutely been flying. We've pulled out 5 seconds over Charles Leclerc. And I've just been hanging in his DRS. We've been pretty much not trading fastest laps, but it has been very, very good pace from us two. But now, Mark wants us to try and apply the pressure to our teammate. Maybe we can take a victory away from Sonny and claim our 4th win of this season, which would be some feat for our rookie season here in Formula 1. Pierre Gasly looking to try and get down the inside of Alex Albon, but Yuki Tsunoda is suffering an engine failure. He's going slow down the straight, and he's been rear-ended by the Sauber. And is that Kimi Antonelli as well in the Mercedes? A big giant plume of smoke has littered the track, and is that going to be enough for a safety car? We've got 2 cars stranded at turn 1. We're catching up to the back of our teammate for this objective, and that's going to be enough for a safety car. No, red flag. We've got a red flag here in Brazil for that accident there involving Tsunoda. I reckon that was the Sauber of Gabriel Bortoleto and Kimi Antonelli. So let's have a look at exactly what has happened here. So on board with Gabriel here, let's take a look. A big smoke screen from Yuki Tsunoda, and he actually rolls it. Whoa, I was not expecting that. That is an absolutely massive accident. Massive airtime there from Bortoleto and that Sauber. Absolute smoke screen. And whoa, Antonelli. I bet he's glad to have that halo, because that Sauber just launched up at him, the rear end of the car kind of bouncing up over the debris, being littered absolutely everywhere across the track, and he takes a Sauber to the side of his halo. So very, very lucky that he's got it. And while Antonelli was coming to a stop, Bortoleto, he's still flying through the air. He's doing pirouettes in the air, and that is an absolutely massive shunt here in Brazil. And now taking a look on board Gabriel's teammate, and he drives underneath his teammate. Wow. What a crash to bring out a red flag. For the strategy, I'm being given the softs for 10 laps and onto the hards for the remainder of the Grand Prix. I did have a look at the mediums, but the softs are by far the better option for the rest of this Grand Prix before making our stop onto the hard compound tyres. We're away for the second time here on Sunday in Sao Paulo, and it's another really good start from our teammate. We didn't get quite a good start this time around, and so we're under attack from Leclerc, but we cut him off at turn 2 to make sure he can't mount an attack onto us. Verstappen, he's up into 4th position. He's now got himself ahead of his championship rival, Lando Norris. Norris now into P5, Verstappen all the way up into 4th position, and Norris's teammate, Oscar Piastri, goes down the inside of Fernando Alonso. Or is Alonso going to be able to take this position away and get himself now up in 6th position? We must say, Piastri has actually been falling off a little bit here, as he has been... He was up in 3rd position at the start of this Grand Prix. He now finds himself down into 7th position, with Lewis Hamilton right behind him, and behind him will soon probably turn into in front of him as he now looks to the inside at turn 1, and it's going to be a pretty convincing move from Lewis Hamilton. He'll have to go around the outside at the second part of this center S here, and he does get that position taken away from Oscar Piastri. Back on board with ourselves, though, it is going to be a fastest lap from Lando Norris behind us, and this kind of caught me off guard here. Leclerc showed his nose down at turn 1, and that kind of put me off here. So I've now had a bad run coming down into this next part of DRS, and I don't have too much battery, so I'm trying to save up as much as I can by not deploying it here. But that allows Leclerc to have a look around our outside. We defend, though. But while all of that was going on, we got our next objective to keep the tyre wear down. So we're really using up these softs. I'm trying to somewhat stay with our teammate, but he's now 3.5 seconds up the road, and we're too focused now on the battle behind us to try and maintain this Apex GP 1-2 in today's Grand Prix. But it looks like as we head on to lap 15, it could be to no reward, because Leclerc powers past us in the DRS. We have to sit tight into 3rd position and focus on our defense to Max Verstappen, who is looking to try and claim even more points against his championship rival, Lando Norris. And on board with ourselves now, our tyre wear is absolutely up there. We have to try and keep, well, we've only got 2% left to play with before the rest of this lap, so I've got a feeling I'm not going to be able to pass this objective, because I'm going to have to try and also stick with Charles Leclerc if I want to try and get this P2 back away from him. But look on the mini-map. We've now got a massive train all behind us because we've been battling so hard, and that's now allowed Hayes to get himself 7 seconds in front of us. So Hayes is absolutely flying out there as we do fail that objective. But now, all I'm doing, I'm not focusing on tyre wear anymore. I'm just now focusing on trying to make sure I can get myself a good run here out of this final corner. Not too much wheel spin, none at all. And now just deploying the battery, waiting for the DRS, and try and see if we can't mount an attack on Charles Leclerc. Because the more that I can stay with him, if I don't get past him now, I'm probably going to lose touch of him. But you saw how much he was able to pull away from us in the middle sector. We go down the inside. We're going to try and squeeze him out at the second part here, and we do successfully do that. And that is us now back up to the second position. But Hayes is now 9 seconds ahead of us. So Hayes, very dominant here today. But we lose the position once again to Charles Leclerc, using the DRS down the main straight, and he'll get us going into the first corner. But are we going to be able to get ourselves back ahead? We've got a dose of DRS here from behind. We're using the battery. We've got 3% left. We've pretty much used it all. The tyre wear icon's now on, but we go down the inside under the brakes. We have to drop it all the way down to second gear to make sure we try and get the car stopped, using a bit of engine braking. And we now go side by side up through the hill, and Charles Leclerc backs out of it as we now go up the hill, and that is us back up into turn 2, and that was probably as far back as you could probably ever send a move going into turn 4. It's a very fast moving corner, so if you're going to make a dive going through there, you nearly have to already be side by side. So the fact that we were able to send one from that far back is absolutely wild to think about. Sonny Hayes, he's now 11 seconds ahead of us, so I think the battle with our teammate is pretty much over to try and get this race win. All we can do now is try and maintain a second position to try and get ourselves this 1-2 that we should have got in Mexico. And unfortunately, as I said at the start of the episode, our control electronics unit decided it didn't want to let us take that 1-2. So is this going to be redemption day for us at the very next race in Sao Paulo? The two Williams, though, they're battling it out, and Alex Albon will go all the way around the outside. They were 3 wide at turn 4 with the Alpine there, Pierre Gasly. And in the end, it is going to be Albon that gets ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz. We pull it into the pits now on lap 19. This is going to be our one and only actual pit stop. I think it's going to claim that we did 2 because we did change compound during the red flag, so it's probably going to be classified as a 2-stopper, but we're only going to be doing this one actual pit stop as it's a late turn in. I'm not going to lie, I may have forgotten which button it was that I had to press, so yeah, completely missed the button there to do the turn in, but in the end, we maintain our track position ahead of Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen, so that's pretty crucial there to be able to maintain that. And our teammate now, a lap later, will come into the lane here for his also one and only pit stop, so he'll be boxing off to the softs, and I'm going to also assume onto a set of hard compound tyres for the rest of the Grand Prix. It looks like it's going to be a pretty good stop there for our teammate, and I mean, even if it is a slow stop, he's got 11 something seconds to play with, so he should be pretty good. And for ourselves, our next objective of the Grand Prix is to try and save a little bit of fuel. So because I've been pushing so hard so far this Grand Prix, even though that I do overfuel the car, Mark kind of wants me to save a little bit of fuel just in case, for whatever reason, we tend to start burning some more fuel, because one of the issues that you could have in this game is a little bit of extra fuel burn. It's usually the ERS that is one of the issues that you'll get in the game, but sometimes, very rarely, you can get a fuel burn issue as well. So we need to try and make sure that we've got plenty of fuel on board in case if something like that does happen. Hamilton, he's getting himself once again ahead of George Russell. These two battled it out in the sprint race, and here they are once again in the Grand Prix, going at it once more, and around the outside, Lewis Hamilton will take 6th position away from George Russell, and by the time we come to the start of lap 26, we do complete that objective. So that is going to be some experience booked for us in our driver ratings. As now we focus on Max Verstappen, who's behind us. He's 1.5 seconds behind and absolutely flying, so he could definitely be a threat to us, as now Sonny Hayes gets himself back up into the lead, but he's getting past Lando Norris, who is yet to make a pit stop. So Norris, I think, is at the moment hanging out to try and see if there's going to be another safety car. Stay out as long as he possibly can, because he was behind Max Verstappen. I feel like if they want to try and stay in this championship fight, they have to do things opposite to Max to try and get themselves ahead of him, because at the moment, whatever they do, they just can't get ahead of Max Verstappen. But eventually, at the end of the lap, starting lap 27, he will come in, they'll wave the white flag, and he's going to come in for a set of what looks like to be soft compound tyres for the rest of the Grand Prix. So watch out for Lando Norris. He could be very, very quick towards the end of this Grand Prix. As we now take a look at his teammate, Oscar Piastri. He's now looking to take this position away from Lewis Hamilton. So I was saying at the start of the Grand Prix, it looked like Piastri was maybe falling back a little bit, because he started up, well, at one point he was 3rd position, and then he fell all the way to 7th position before the red flag came out, and now he's worked himself back up to a possible 4th if he can get this move done, and he does get it done ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So the recovery drive is very much under the way now for, by Oscar Piastri here, as we do an order check, and it's going to be our teammate Sonny Hayes leading the way ahead of ourselves, making an Apex GP 1-2, but we're being hunted down by Max Verstappen, who's only a second behind us. And then we just saw the battle between Piastri and Hamilton. Then it's George Russell, Fernando Alonso, Pierre Gasly up in 8th position, the 2 Williams of Albon ahead of Carlos Sainz, taking out the final points paying position. And then it's Ocon, Stroll, Hulkenberg, Lando Norris, after that late pit stop, finds himself down in 14th position, trying to make his way back through the field. And then it's Ollie Behrman, Liam Lawson, Jack Doohan, Isaac Hadjar in 18th position. And what has happened to Charles Leclerc? Because he was battling right up the front as well, and he now finds himself in 19th position. So I wonder what has happened to Charles Leclerc for him to fall so far down. Maybe had a bit of contact somewhere, and he's had to repair a front wing, or maybe he just didn't have a good set of tyres available after the red flag. The red flag definitely threw a bit of a spanner in the works, as we now fail our next objective, which was to keep Verstappen ahead, which is a little bit annoying, because I've stayed ahead of Max Verstappen, but because he got his nose in front at the braking zone, it's failed me. So it's a little bit disappointing, but in the end, we're going to continue this battle. Max Verstappen going down the inside at turn 4 to maintain this position, and definitely at the moment, with only 5 laps to go, now only 3 laps to go, the goal is definitely to keep Max behind, to try and lock in this Apex GP 1-2 here in Sao Paulo. And take note, we've caught up massively to Sonny. He's now only 5.5 seconds up the road, so I wonder if he's now maybe taking it a little bit easy to the end of this Grand Prix, making sure he doesn't make any mistakes and try and get this win, his first win in Formula 1, as we continue our defense against Max Verstappen. But Oscar Piastri, he's slowly closing in on those medium compound tyres, but I feel like the hards are going to be the better tyre to be on, as Albon is looking to the inside of Pierre Gasly. Can he go up to 8th position? He can get himself up into 8th position, and so now Gasly is in an Alpine sandwich, but he looks like he wants to end that as quickly as possible, as now onto lap 35, he'll use the DRS, he'll go around the outside turn 1. Is he going to be able to get the position done into turn 2? No, he can't. Albon, he keeps it around the outside, he gives him the inside for turn 3, and now it's a run down the straight into turn 4, and here comes Carlos Sainz and the other Williams. They're going to make it 3 wide into turn 4. Esteban Ocon in the Haas, right behind him, has got a best view for this as well, as he sits in P11, hoping to try and get himself a point for Haas. And in the end, it looks like Carlos Sainz is going to be able to sweep around the outside, and he gets them locked. So he now jumps himself up into 8th position, but all eyes now go to Sonny Hayes, because he is going to get victory in Formula 1 for the very first time, and we are only going to just hold on to a P2 to make it a historic first ever 1-2 for Apex GP. And wow, Redemption Day is here. This is what we should have got in Mexico.
No one knows what goes on behind the scenes, but on the racetrack today, it's a win. And what a win for Sonny Hayes.
A great display of dominance today, Crofty, by this driver. They led from lights out to the flag at the end, led every lap of the race. Brilliant stuff by them, and excited to see what more they can do in future races.
Only 3 can take to the podium, and here they come.
Wow, wow, wow. What a Grand Prix. It was intense the entire way throughout this Grand Prix. It's a first ever 1-2 for the team, and this, as I said, this is the result we should have got in Mexico, so it feels so nice to have finally got this. So many up and downs this season, but this is by far the highlight, and Max Verstappen fought all the way to the end and ends up third to take another podium this season and extend his championship lead even further. The rest of the top 10 is Oscar Piastri, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, and Pierre Gasly, and Norris, with a horrid weekend, doesn't even end up inside the points, and this is pretty much championship over. He is still mathematically in it, but now, more than ever, he needs a miracle to win this world title. Yuki Tsunoda, Kimi Antonelli, and Gabriel Bortoleto, all non-finishers after that almighty shunt to bring out the red flag earlier in the Grand Prix. Max Verstappen extends his championship lead to 73 points ahead of Lando Norris. Myself in third, 67 points behind, and Hayes is in ninth, 34 points behind George Russell, and Red Bull lead the Constructors' Championship by 57 points to McLaren. Ferrari are in third, 90 points further behind, and Apex GP, we sit fourth, a further 58 points back. And for our driver ratings, everything has gained points to give us an overall rating of driver level 86, which is pretty good. That's exactly where we need to be for our contract. Our driver recognition remains at 59%, and that is going to be all for this episode. So if you did enjoy it, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next episode where we go to the Las Vegas Strip for the Vegas Grand Prix. I'll see you then.